Hello Army, welcome back to my channel. If you thought the story around Jimin's now legendary World Cup jersey was finished after we covered that whole counterfeit situation a little while back, think again, because this jersey just keeps generating headline after headline, and today we're talking about maybe the most remarkable chapter yet in its journey. That same custom jersey Jimin wore during BTS's historic performance at the FIFA World Cup final halftime show has now landed in one of the most prestigious auction houses in the entire world, and as of right now, it's actually pulling in bids that rival, and at certain points have even surpassed, a jersey connected to none other than Lionel Messi. Let's break down exactly what's happening here, because this story genuinely gets more fascinating the deeper you dig into it. So let's start with the full context of this auction, because understanding the bigger picture here really helps illustrate just how significant this moment is for Jimin specifically. Christie's, one of the oldest and most respected auction houses in the world, has teamed up with Global Citizen to launch something called One Goal, an online charity auction running from July 22nd through July 29th, with every single dollar raised going directly to the FIFA Global Citizen Education Fund. If you've been following our previous videos about the World Cup halftime show, you already know this fund is aiming to raise a full $100 million total, all of it earmarked for expanding access to education and football opportunities for children in underserved communities around the world. So beyond just being a fascinating story about memorabilia and bidding wars, there's a genuinely meaningful charitable purpose underlying this entire auction event. Now let's talk about exactly what's up for bid here, because the sheer scale and star power involved in this auction is honestly remarkable on its own. This isn't just some random assortment of sports merchandise being thrown together for a quick charity sale. Christie's has assembled what's genuinely one of the most impressive collections of World Cup and halftime show memorabilia ever put up for auction in a single event. We're talking about the actual official match ball from the World Cup final itself, along with opening game balls from matches played across Mexico, Canada, and the United States. We're talking about signed jerseys from legendary players like Lionel Messi, connected to his historic 2022 World Cup winning run in Qatar, alongside items from other soccer icons like David Beckham, Alphonso Davies, and Santiago Jimenez. But it's the halftime show memorabilia specifically that's been generating the most conversation, and that's exactly where Jimin's jersey comes into this whole story. Every single performer from that historic first ever World Cup final halftime show contributed personal items to this auction. Madonna donated a pair of her fingerless gloves from the performance. Justin Bieber contributed the specific sneakers he wore on stage that day. Chris Martin, who curated and produced the entire halftime show through his work with Coldplay, donated handwritten lyrics from the original song he wrote specifically for the closing segment of the show. And BTS, in a genuinely touching gesture, had all 7 members individually contribute one piece of their own stage wardrobe from that performance. Let's run through exactly what each member donated, because it's honestly such a sweet detail that speaks to how personally invested this group was in supporting this charitable cause. RM contributed his boots from the performance. J-Hope donated his gloves. Jin gave up his belt. Suga contributed his pants. V donated his scarf. Jungkook gave his jacket. And Jimin, the member we're focusing on specifically today, donated his now famous custom number 7 jersey, the exact same white and red baseball-inspired piece he wore while performing Dynamite alongside his bandmates on that historic afternoon. Now here's where things get really interesting, and honestly, where this story takes a turn that even I didn't fully expect when I started researching it for today's video. As bidding on this auction has continued throughout the week, Jimin's jersey specifically has emerged as one of the absolute standout lots of the entire sale, generating bids that have put it in genuinely rarefied company. According to reporting on the auction's progress, Jimin's jersey has, at various points, found itself sitting right alongside, and at times even ahead of, the bidding for a jersey connected to Lionel Messi, one of the most legendary and universally recognized athletes in the entire history of the sport. Let's really sit with that for a second, because I think it's easy to hear a statement like that and not fully process just how remarkable it actually is. We're talking about Lionel Messi, arguably the greatest soccer player of his generation, if not of all time, someone whose game-worn memorabilia has historically fetched millions of dollars at previous auctions, including a set of 6 jerseys from his triumphant 2022 World Cup run that brought in figures reportedly approaching or exceeding $10 million when they went up for sale through Sotheby's. And now, within this specific Christie's charity auction, a custom stage costume worn by Jimin during an 11-minute halftime show performance is generating bidding activity that's putting it in direct competition with items connected to that same soccer legend. According to reports covering this auction's progress, at certain points, the bidding on Jimin's jersey has actually pulled ahead of bidding on a comparable Messi-related lot within this same sale, a detail that's understandably generated an enormous amount of excitement and conversation among both BTS fans and general sports memorabilia collectors following this auction closely. It's worth noting, since this auction remains active as we're putting together this video, that exact bidding figures and rankings can continue to shift right up until the sale officially closes, so any specific numbers we're discussing today reflect where things stood at the time of filming rather than necessarily the final, closing bid amounts. But regardless of exactly where the final numbers land once bidding officially closes, the fact that Jimin's jersey has been competitive with, and at times ahead of, bidding tied to Lionel Messi throughout this auction is already a genuinely remarkable data point worth discussing. Let's think about why this particular comparison resonates so strongly with people following this story. Messi represents, for an enormous global audience, the absolute pinnacle of achievement within the sport of soccer itself. His memorabilia commands these kinds of prices specifically because of his unparalleled legacy as a player, his multiple World Cup and Ballon d'Or wins, and his status as one of the most recognizable athletes on the entire planet. For a piece of stage costume worn during a single 11-minute musical performance to generate bidding activity that rivals items connected to that level of athletic legacy says something genuinely significant about the cultural weight currently attached to Jimin, and to BTS's participation in this historic World Cup moment more broadly. Let's also talk about why this specific jersey, out of everything up for auction in this entire sale, has generated this level of attention and competitive bidding. Part of it certainly comes down to the historic nature of the performance itself. As we've discussed extensively in previous videos on this channel, BTS's appearance at this year's World Cup final represented the very first time in the history of the tournament that a final had ever featured an official halftime show. Jimin, performing alongside his 6 bandmates, was part of that genuinely unprecedented moment, sandwiched in the performance order between icons like Madonna and Justin Bieber. A piece of costume connected to that specific historic first is naturally going to carry significant collector value, simply by virtue of being tied to a moment that will be remembered as a genuine milestone in both music history and sports entertainment history. But I also think there's something more specific happening here beyond just the general historic significance of the performance itself. If you've been following along with our previous coverage of this jersey story, you already know that this exact piece generated an enormous amount of independent fan enthusiasm even before it ever reached this auction house. We previously covered how demand for a version of this specific design became so intense following the halftime show that counterfeit knockoffs actually started appearing online, prompting the jersey's actual designer to step in personally and address the situation. That kind of pre-existing, documented fan obsession with this exact piece of clothing likely translated directly into the kind of intense, competitive bidding we're now seeing play out in this official charity auction. Let's also spend some time thinking about the broader context of celebrity and sports memorabilia auctions more generally, because I think it helps explain why an item like this can generate this level of financial interest in the first place. Game-worn or performance-worn items carry this unique kind of emotional and historical weight that mass-produced retail merchandise simply can't replicate. When a collector purchases something like Jimin's jersey, they're not just buying a piece of fabric with a nice design on it. They're purchasing a tangible, physical connection to a specific, unrepeatable historic moment, a piece of clothing that was actually worn by Jimin himself, on that exact stage, during that exact performance, at that exact point in BTS's already historic career. That kind of authenticity and direct connection to a significant cultural moment is exactly what drives collectors to pay these kinds of premium prices for items like this. Let's also touch on why this comparison to Messi specifically carries so much weight within the broader conversation happening around this auction. Messi's memorabilia has, historically, represented something close to the gold standard when it comes to sports collectible pricing. When Sotheby's auctioned off 6 of his jerseys from that legendary 2022 World Cup winning campaign, the sale generated headlines specifically because of how astronomically high the bidding climbed, eventually approaching figures that put it in direct competition with previous records for the most expensive sports memorabilia ever sold, including comparisons to Michael Jordan's iconic jersey from the 1998 NBA Finals. So when a piece connected to Jimin ends up generating bidding activity that puts it in that same conversation, even within the specific context of this particular charity auction, it represents a genuinely significant crossover moment between the worlds of sports memorabilia collecting and music and entertainment memorabilia collecting. Let's think about what this specific moment might mean for how collectors and auction houses approach K-pop related memorabilia going forward. If a single custom stage costume from an 11-minute halftime show performance can generate this level of competitive bidding activity, rivaling items connected to genuine sporting legends, it wouldn't be surprising to see auction houses increasingly recognize the significant collector value tied to major K-pop moments and milestones going forward. BTS has already established itself as one of the most commercially and culturally significant musical acts of this entire era, and moments like this jersey's performance in this particular auction only further reinforce just how much genuine collector demand exists for authentic, historically significant pieces connected to this group's career. Let's also talk about the other BTS members' contributions to this same auction, because while Jimin's jersey has clearly generated the most attention and the most competitive bidding, the other 6 pieces donated by his bandmates are also part of this same historic collection of items. RM's boots, J-Hope's gloves, Jin's belt, Suga's pants, V's scarf, and Jungkook's jacket all represent their own individual pieces of this same historic performance, and it's likely that each of these items has generated its own meaningful level of bidding interest throughout this auction as well, even if Jimin's specific jersey has emerged as the standout piece generating the most dramatic headlines. It's honestly a beautiful thing to think about, all 7 members choosing to contribute directly to this charitable cause, turning pieces of their own personal performance history into items that will ultimately help fund educational and athletic opportunities for children around the world. This kind of gesture speaks to something meaningful about how this group approaches moments of massive cultural significance in their career. Rather than simply treating this historic World Cup performance as purely a professional milestone to be celebrated and moved past, they've chosen to extend the impact of that moment into something genuinely charitable, allowing fans and collectors the opportunity to own a piece of history while simultaneously contributing to a cause that could meaningfully improve children's access to education and sports around the world. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the other major names and items involved in this broader Christie's auction, because I think it helps paint a fuller picture of just how significant an event this entire sale represents. Beyond the halftime show performers, this auction also features items connected to the actual soccer competition itself, including that Lionel Messi jersey we've already discussed, along with pieces signed by other major soccer figures like David Beckham, Alphonso Davies, and Santiago Jimenez. There's also apparently a jersey connected to Brazilian midfielder Casemiro, along with official match balls from throughout the tournament, including from the opening matches held across all 3 host countries. And beyond the sports memorabilia specifically, there's also this fascinating collection of additional halftime show-related items, including that earth ball inscribed by Chris Martin with the names of every single performer from the show, Shakira's outfit from her Die Die music video performance, and handwritten setlist notes from Chris Martin documenting how the entire 11-minute performance was structured. It's genuinely one of the most comprehensive collections of memorabilia connected to a single major cultural event that we've seen assembled for auction in quite some time, blending together the worlds of professional sports and global music entertainment into a single, cohesive charitable sale. Let's also touch on Christie's own recent history with major memorabilia auctions, because it provides some helpful context for understanding why they were positioned to put together an event of this scale and ambition in the first place. This auction comes just weeks after Christie's wrapped up their massive JiminEdit memorabilia collection sale, which brought in over $105 million total and became, at the time, the largest memorabilia auction series ever held by the auction house. That recent success likely played a significant role in Christie's decision to move quickly on organizing this World Cup and halftime show-themed auction, capitalizing on the massive cultural momentum generated by this year's tournament and its genuinely historic halftime show. It's also worth noting that a significant percentage of bidders and buyers throughout the previous Ursay auction series were entirely new to Christie's as a platform, suggesting that memorabilia sales tied to major cultural moments like this one have this unique ability to attract collectors and bidders who might never have previously considered participating in a traditional fine art or antiques auction. Given that pattern, it makes complete sense that an auction featuring items connected to both major soccer legends and one of the biggest musical acts on the planet would similarly attract this kind of broad, diverse base of interested bidders, exactly the kind of crossover appeal that seems to be driving this intense competitive bidding we're seeing play out around Jimin's jersey specifically. Let's take a moment to think about what this entire situation says about Jimin's individual standing within the broader cultural conversation happening right now. We've talked at length on this channel about the historic nature of BTS's World Cup final halftime show appearance, about that wholesome viral moment with IShowSpeed backstage, and about the counterfeit jersey situation that emerged in the immediate aftermath of the performance. And now, we're watching this same jersey generate genuinely competitive bidding activity against items connected to one of the greatest athletes of this generation, within one of the most prestigious auction houses in the entire world. When you connect all of these different threads together, you start to see this incredibly consistent pattern of genuine, sustained cultural relevance and desirability surrounding literally everything connected to this specific performance and this specific artist. Let's also think about the timing of all of this within the broader context of BTS's already historic comeback year. This has genuinely been one of the most eventful, milestone-filled years of the group's entire career, from the record-breaking release of their Erarang album, to their massive, continent-spanning world tour, to this historic World Cup final halftime show appearance, and now this fascinating chapter involving Jimin's jersey generating headline-grabbing bidding activity at a major charity auction. Each of these individual milestones would already represent a significant achievement on their own, but the fact that they've all happened within essentially the same calendar year speaks to just how remarkable this particular period has been within the broader story of this group's career. Let's also spend a moment talking about why moments like this jersey auction tend to resonate so strongly with fans following this kind of story, beyond just the surface-level excitement of watching a bidding war unfold. There's something genuinely meaningful about watching an item connected to your favorite artist demonstrate this level of tangible, measurable cultural, and financial significance, especially when that item is simultaneously being used to support a genuinely worthwhile charitable cause. It's not just about the novelty of comparing bidding figures between Jimin and Messi. It's about recognizing that this entire auction represents a real opportunity to contribute meaningfully to expanding educational and athletic opportunities for children around the world, all while celebrating and preserving a piece of history connected to one of BTS's most significant career milestones. Let's also touch on what happens to items like this once the auction officially concludes, because I think it's worth understanding the broader life cycle of memorabilia like this beyond just the immediate excitement of the bidding process itself. Whoever ultimately wins the bidding for Jimin's jersey will become the owner of a genuinely unique, one-of-a-kind piece of history, connected to a performance that will likely be remembered and discussed for years, if not decades, to come. Depending on the buyer's own intentions, that jersey could end up being displayed publicly, perhaps loaned to museums or exhibitions focused on either sports history or music history, or it could remain in a private collection, treasured by whoever ultimately places the winning bid. Let's also acknowledge the broader significance of this auction extending beyond just its impact on Jimin's individual reputation or BTS's broader legacy. Every single dollar raised through this sale, regardless of which specific items generate the most attention or the highest final bids, contributes directly to that broader goal of raising $100 million for the FIFA Global Citizen Education Fund. So in a very real sense, all of this attention and excitement being generated around Jimin's jersey specifically ends up serving this larger charitable purpose, drawing additional eyes and additional bidding activity to an auction that's ultimately designed to benefit children's access to education and sports opportunities around the world. Let's take a moment to reflect on just how fitting it feels that this entire story connects back to a performance that was already deeply tied to charitable giving from the very beginning. As we discussed in our previous coverage of the World Cup halftime show itself, that entire 11-minute performance was produced specifically in partnership with Global Citizen, with proceeds from World Cup ticket sales already contributing toward this same educational fund throughout the tournament. Now, watching pieces of costume from that exact performance generate this level of competitive, headline-grabbing bidding activity within a dedicated charity auction feels like this natural, fitting continuation of that same charitable spirit that defined the entire halftime show experience in the first place. Let's also spend some time thinking about what this whole situation might mean for how we think about celebrity memorabilia more broadly going forward, particularly as it relates to comparing value across genuinely different categories of fame and achievement. It's genuinely fascinating to watch a piece of stage costume from a musical performance generate this level of competitive interest against items connected to legitimate sporting achievement at the absolute highest level. It speaks to this broader cultural shift where the boundaries between different categories of celebrity and cultural significance have become increasingly blurred, where a global musical phenomenon like BTS can generate this kind of measurable, tangible collector interest that genuinely rivals, and in certain specific instances even surpasses, memorabilia connected to some of the most legendary athletes in the history of their respective sports. Let's wrap up by recapping everything we've discussed today about this genuinely fascinating jersey auction story. Christie's, in partnership with Global Citizen, launched an online charity auction called One Goal, running from July 22nd through July 29th, featuring an extraordinary collection of World Cup and halftime show memorabilia, all benefiting the FIFA Global Citizen Education Fund's goal of raising $100 million for children's education and sports access around the world. Among the standout items in this auction is Jimin's custom number 7 jersey, the exact piece he wore while performing Dynamite during BTS's historic World Cup final halftime show appearance, which he personally donated alongside pieces contributed by all 6 of his bandmates. Throughout the bidding process, Jimin's jersey has emerged as one of the genuine standout lots of the entire sale, generating bids that have, at various points, rivaled and even surpassed bidding tied to a jersey connected to soccer legend Lionel Messi, a genuinely remarkable data point that speaks volumes about the current cultural and collector significance surrounding this specific piece of BTS history. This entire story, connecting back through the historic performance itself, through that viral counterfeit jersey situation we covered previously, and now through this fascinating charity auction chapter, really does illustrate just how much sustained, genuine cultural weight has become attached to this single custom jersey, and to Jimin's participation in this historic World Cup moment more broadly. Whether the final bidding numbers ultimately settle above or below whatever comparable Messi-related lot ends up closing it, the fact that this comparison has even become part of the broader conversation surrounding this auction already represents a genuinely significant milestone worth celebrating and discussing. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. If you enjoyed this breakdown of everything happening around Jimin's jersey in this fascinating charity auction, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update like this one in the future. Drop a comment down below letting me know what you think about this whole situation, and if you're someone who follows sports memorabilia auctions more generally, I'd love to hear your own thoughts on how remarkable it is to see this kind of competitive bidding activity between a musical performance costume and genuine sporting legend memorabilia. As always, thank you for being here, thank you for your continued support, and I'll see you in the next video.